Good morning, family, and welcome to today's Lessons for Life. Today is Tuesday, July 28, 2009, and we're reading today in 1 Kings chapter 11. And as always, before I begin, I encourage you to read this chapter through for yourself, see what you get from it, email us, and we'll put it on the blog. But we see here in this chapter, even though how wise King Solomon was, that he did something that displeased God, that he served other gods, or he started to worship other gods. And there's a lesson I want to bring up from this, because you see that he had so many different wives, and it says foreign wives or wives of other cultures, and they all had different gods, and it began to distract them. So one of the lessons I want to share from this chapter is something that we can see is, when you have a lot of distractions in your life, it takes your focus away from God. And that's one thing that we see King Solomon, even though he was a wise man, he allowed for all these distractions to come up in his life. And the distractions can come in the form of your wife, your husband, your spouse, your job, different things that you do. And I'm very much a proponent, or in favor of a simplified life, not having so many different distractions. I was even talking to Uncle Terry yesterday about telephone, but they have the cell phones, and I say, well, one of the reasons I don't have a cell phone is when I'm doing something, I don't want to be taken away from it or distracted. A lot of times, you see people doing things, and then their phone interrupts them from whatever they're doing, and constantly, one phone call, two phone calls, three phone calls, whatever. But for me, if I'm doing something, whether I'm traveling in my car, or if I'm at somewhere that's not at work, then I don't want to be distracted by the phone. I want to be able to focus my attention on what I'm doing, as opposed to now getting interrupted by a telephone call, which I see over and over and over and over again with people who have cell phones. So that's one of the reasons I don't personally right now have a cell phone, because I see it as a distraction, and I like to be focused. Even in the office, when I'm doing something in the office, I don't like to be distracted or lose focus from a phone call, even it could be work related or anything. I like to finish what I'm doing, but concentrate on what I'm doing. And sometimes I don't even like when people come into the office, especially like salespeople or things like that, because they're a distraction for me. But that's a little on the side note. But when we see it in the scriptures, and what we can learn from this particular chapter as a lesson, is when you have a lot of different distractions in your life, then it takes your focus away from God. So for us, really, we need to keep God in priority, and to help us to do that is to eliminate all these different distractions, or eliminate these things that are coming up. Because you see, even King Solomon, it's not that he completely turned away from God and started worshiping another god, but he now had to, he set up a he set up different idols, or whatever he set up for the god of the Sidonians, of the Ammonites, of Moab, and he started having all these other things that were taken away from his one and true full worship, which should have gone to the Lord God. And that's one lesson I want to share. And another lesson as we read through is that God still remained faithful to the word that he gave to David, because even through Solomon's disobedience, he didn't completely take the kingdom away from him. But he now it now causes a division between the children of Israel. But what we can see from this is that the Lord still kept his word to David, because remember, David was favored, and he was a man after God's own heart, as it says. But the Lord was still faithful to keep his word to David, and he didn't completely take the kingdom away from Solomon. So those are the two things I want to really share from this chapter. And with that, create yourself a wonderfully blessed day today, and we'll talk again tomorrow.